Fireside Chat with MFSA and Malta Chamber.
Without further ado, Camille, MFSA's foresight and Malta's foresight in 2018, as well as you and your team's dedication, attitude, and hard work over the past 3 years, have contributed to making Malta the capital of crypto, I would say. So we moved from blockchain island to becoming the capital of crypto. We have attracted some of the most important names in the industry, and I think that's something extremely positive for the jurisdiction, for the reputation of the jurisdiction. However, this has attracted attention, and as soon as you granted the first few licenses under the simplified procedure granted by the EU institutions, then we started having some attention, which led to ESMA conducting a peer review on the MFSA, raising suspicions that things were not being done in the right way. The report was then published after a few months, and although some media outlets reported that the report was negative, those who bothered to actually read the report, it was actually extremely positive. Can you explain a bit, in a nutshell, the outcome of that report and MFSA's position on the conclusions?
Yeah, of course. Good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for the invite. Once again, it was a pleasure to come. So you described the situation pretty well. There was a peer review, which is a mechanism that European authority use to check how things are implemented, but most importantly to draw recommendation and advice for the entire community. And I think this is important to mention it. Malta was selected to be part of this review. We were kind of expecting it because we were one of the first, and there was a really specific case that could serve as a fantastic case study. And I think this is how we need to look at it. So the report, some part of it is public. The executive summary, I believe it's maybe 5 pages long. The real report is 55, so there's a bit more to it. And the report is really interesting, the conclusion that it drew. First of all, no one's perfect, and we have never claimed to be. And I think it's always good to see areas of improvements and to be self-critical of your own work. I think this is really important. And also it was really important for us to go through this exercise to give confidence in the market, right? Because we've been doing this for quite some time, since 2018. We experience, doesn't mean that we're perfect, doesn't mean that everyone knows our story. So it was really important to go through it. Some of the, let's say, the highlights of the report. The first one is the fact that ESMA has concluded that Malta has the necessary expertise and the resources to authorize and supervise. Multiple times in the report it's mentioned. The team know what they're doing, they have the expertise, it is clear, which is really important. We're in a situation where, just like the industry, every regulator is struggling to find competent people. Talent is something that is really rare in our industry, but we've managed over the years to build a good team. Competent people that know the license holder, that know the business, know the sector, and are effective in their supervision, which is the second highlight, that when using supervisory power, MFSA was highly effective, which is for us the most important. Authorizing someone is just the beginning of the story. But then when the honeymoon is over, this is where the real challenge starts. Here, we're lucky that we have a fantastic experience and we have many years of supervision behind us. Obviously, when you authorize and supervise someone for more than 5 years, you're most intimate with the company. You know what they're doing, you know how they react, which makes us extremely efficient. And I think this is the most important, because let's not fool ourselves. Something will always happen. This is an industry just like any other. An event will happen. Someone will get hacked. Some dirty money will come in. Whatever it is, something will happen. And I think it's really important to assess a regulator and its capacity to react fast and to have proportionate response. This is the most important because it really shows the understanding. A typical response could be there's a hack or there's something, we close the door, we abandon everything, we ban, we don't understand. It's not what we've done. We went a bit more technical. So that is, let's say, on the positive. On the areas for improvement, because there's always, anyone here that has been audited will know that there's always an area of improvement. If there is none, your auditor is not good enough. Areas for improvement, one, the timing of decision. I think that ESMA is not used to our style. Malta being quite small, quite agile, we're able to take decision fast, sometimes much faster than other NCA. And obviously having 5 years of experience allow you to take a decision, not in a split second, but close to. Because the decision that we took was after 5 years and 1 month, not after 1 month. So obviously the timing is something that will always be questioned, but we're fine with that. Our assessment was thorough. There's obviously a need to continue boosting our resources as the sector grow, and I think this is really important. We have a really good pipeline of company coming in, and our resources needs to stay at the same level. Otherwise, the quality of our supervision will suffer. So overall, not a bad exercise. It's obviously a lot of sleepless nights, months and months of work, because it's always more difficult to demonstrate that you're compliant. The moment there is, any suspicion or doubt, it's always easy to look at certain things a certain way. Sadly, we saw some, let's say, bad practice in the market. For us, it's pretty clear that it turned into a political exercise. We saw, obviously, some other member states, some media house that took the opportunity. They saw a crack and they went into it. But I think, as it went as fast as it come. When there's no story, it doesn't last. And I think this is the bottom line here. If there was any fault, the story will not be over. Here, we've done the work. We prove to everyone that we know what we're doing. We're not fools, and we're moving on, and we keep building.
In fact, by the end of last year, I believe we had 30 VFA licensees, and right now we have 6-7 CASPs licensed. So, under a simplified procedure, I would expect that by now we should have had 20 out of the 30 licensed. Why are we not seeing so many VASPs that have already transitioned into CASP territory?
Well, the process is simplified in the sense that we can use what we know about you, reuse certain things. But the requirements are not simplified, and we should not forget that to be granted a CASP license, you also need to factor in DORA. DORA came like a bomb in our sector, and there's quite a step up. So what we're seeing is anyone that is ready, anyone that can demonstrate compliance with MiCA and the countless guidance, opinion, RTS that ESMA and EBA are issuing, is granted a license pretty fast. And we had people that were able to demonstrate that were granted a license in what I called a record time. So I think there is that. The second thing is there's always a seasonality to business. I think we saw from the industry, but even from our end, that the moment summer is around, things slow down quite a lot. But now we're seeing a momentum. Now it's picking up again. We're quite pleased to see some company that are really at the final stages, and that we can start proposing and recommending to our executive committee that they are granted a license. So I wouldn't worry too much. I think that this approach was a bit more cautious, but it allows us not to make mistakes. And I think this is the most important. Ultimately, the last thing we would want is having issued a lot of licenses in a period of time where maybe there was doubt about what we're doing, and then having a lot of question mark. Here, we cleared all the doubts, all the suspicion.
So now everyone can say, look, they passed the peer review with flying colors, I would say.
You know what we're doing, and now we can proceed. And this was always the plan. So, yes, obviously, it creates a bit of delays maybe, but if I look around Europe, there was an initial push from certain NCA, but it has slowed down from everyone else.
Agreed. And I suspect we might be seeing potentially some extension beyond the July deadline next year.
That's not possible. So
we'll see.
I'm only the MFSA, I'm not the parliament.
Not from the MFSA side, I mean from the European authority.
I'm not seeing it happening. I mean, never say never, but right now what seems to happen is the Commission reached some compromise to get MiCA going. It doesn't seem to have an appetite to open it immediately. At some point there was talk, MiCA 2 and whatever. It doesn't seem to be on the immediate agenda because I think they first need to see the market impact.
Definitely.
Also, I think, and perhaps it is wise from the Commission, that we need a serious cleanup. I think we have too many VASP in Europe. Latest estimate is more than 2,000. We don't need 2,000 VASP. When we have some giant in Malta, and we see already how competitive it can be to get market share, we don't need 2,000 VASP. So I think going down to between 100 and 200 would maybe give a fighting chance to some people. So I think, yes, there is a need to.
There are also different type of CASPs as well. So not all CASPs are exchanges. A lot of CASPs are performing very specific functions in terms of payments, for example. And if we look at the payment industry, there are quite a few payment companies that exist, and they still compete and they still manage to grab market share. So I understand that exchanges maybe there is a limit of how many you need, but for certain other service providers, there is room for others to get into the market, I would think.
Possibly, but again, if you compare with payment, definitely you have innovative product and you have new guys that carve out some market shares. The large majority, because I also look after payment at the MFSA, we see many guys with an idea, but they don't have any key selling points. When you ask them, what would make me as a client go to you over this guy? Blank faces. So sometimes it is a bit harsh, but I think we need to raise a bit the standards and the bar, because let's face it, this is not an easy industry. To be compliant, the setup that you need to have, it is not meant for everyone. And I think that we should not try to squeeze everyone in with MiCA for innovation. For me, we need to, for example, wait a bit more clarity when it comes to DeFi. This is where you actually have room for innovation because you don't need to have a lot of personnel. This is technology speaking. You can have 2 brilliant guys that code something that works on its own. If you see some of the biggest DeFi protocol, this is what's happening. Some of them are multi-billion company run by a team of 10. But we know if you were a centralized exchange, it's just impossible to be at that scale with that number of resources.
Fair enough. A year ago, we were on the same fireside chat, a different stage. At the time, it was smaller, and you were complaining about how small it was. And we were all worried about what was going to happen to USDT. A year on, it appears that USDT has survived the EU's ban, while the European market has weathered the USDT exit from the European market. So it could be either that Europe is a very small market, so USDT wasn't really affected, or else maybe USDT has managed to weather the storm temporarily. We don't know. However, now that we sort of realize that we can live without USDT, another situation came along. Now we have a new stablecoin situation. The European authorities have realized suddenly there is an overlap between PSD2 and MiCA. And instead of issuing a permanent exemption or amending one of the directives, they issued a temporary exemption and required all CASPs offering any form of custody or transfer services of a stablecoin to obtain a PSD2 license. What is the MFSA doing? I won't ask you to comment, of course, on the mishaps at EU level, but what is the MFSA doing to ensure that all the VASPs and CASPs obtain the necessary license by March 2026 deadline?
Yes, we are in an imperfect world. That's a reality. So we have to deal with it. Definitely, this is not the best situation. I think taking the shortcut of associating an EMT with electronic money, while for a drafting team it seems easy, had actually a lot of impact. We have to deal with that. What we're doing, and we're not alone. And I need to highlight the role of the Chamber of Commerce here. We've tried to engage as much as possible with the industry because this is a reality. You like it or not, doesn't matter. This is the same as being bothered if there's bad weather. You know what I mean? So what we're doing now is we're looking at a simplified authorization process, which is something that EBA has highlighted as being possible. The good thing is that both crypto and payment fall under my remit. So we're talking about one team, one authority, and I think people underestimate the advantage of that. In many member states, that means dealing with two separate authority, if not three, which can be quite a nightmare. Anyone dealing with one regulator has enough. Imagine if you have to deal with two. So here it's under the same. We can use a simplified approach, meaning that we've carried out a gap analysis between the information we collect for the CASP authorization. If that information can be used for the EMI or PI, because in truth you just need a PI, not even an EMI, we can reuse it. So yes, there is a step up. It is getting a second license, but I think we need to look at it from the bright side. What is the bright side? Is that if you're a serious operator that has resources, getting a second license puts you ahead of the competition. Because now you have no limitation. If you're not getting that PI license, that means that you cannot custody or transfer stable coin. I don't know any CASP that can survive in that environment. So I think it needs to be looked at an element to differentiate yourself. But it's not going to be easy, that is for sure. And I think this is why our engagement with the Chamber of Commerce has to be ongoing. This is not a one-time shot. I believe later on this month there is a follow-up meeting. I think that as MFSA, there was quite a public call that we want the industry to be all together, regardless of the vehicle. It can be an association, Chamber of Commerce. We're neutral as MFSA. Obviously, Joe, you have a preference for sure, but we need the industry to come together because we need to find solution. We don't have time to moan around or it's not fair. That's the way it is. The law is the law. It's imperfect. So now we need to work on it. I think that there is steps and stages. I think most important first is to secure a CASP license and not divert the energy between two applications at the same time. That is really a lot. So get a CASP license, apply right after for a limited PI, which should be quite easy if it's back-to-back, and then you can start operating. But it has to be reorganized, and it cannot be, I get the CASP license, now the job is done. Far from that. So, but we're in a good position. We have a small population, meaning that it's human size. We as MFSA can dedicate resources to that. The promoters can dedicate resources to that. We're not in a situation where we have 1,000 CASP that need an EMI at the same time. Here you would have an issue. And I think as an operator, this is an ideal situation when you are in a small market because you have the attention of the regulator. We're doing our best. We'll come up with this simplified approach. At the same time, we are speaking with ESMA, EBA, other regulator to make sure that there is a common approach, common understanding, and whatever we impose on our CASP will be imposed on the rest. Because I think here there's a possibility of regulatory arbitrage, which we want to avoid at all costs. So again, this is an extra effort for sure. In the end, it will pay out for sure. There is an upside. I think that a CASP, having both a CASP and an EMI, will open the door for a lot of B2B business. And I think so far, in crypto, we've seen mostly B2C. Yes, sometimes your customer is an institutional, but we've not seen that many B2B. And here, this is a whole new game. And I think Today we're, obviously in a gaming conference, the importance of B2B is seen. I mean, we see many operators that thrive because they offer B2B. And I think this could be a good opportunity because we'll have players here fully regulated with 2 licenses, and even if they want a third one, it's again with the MFSA. So immediately you become, a regulated powerhouse.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just tie back to what you were saying about the chamber. It's very important that whoever, I'll take the opportunity, of course, being on stage, to invite everyone to become member of the Malta Chamber of Commerce. And we have this VA business section, virtual assets business section, in which we are doing a lot for the operators to have a voice, to get information through official channels constantly. So I really recommend everyone joining and becoming a member of this business section. Commercial over. So speaking of stable coins again, but different kind of stable coins this time, Camille. People are still getting confused between what constitutes an art and what constitutes a security token. And I think that is the next big thing. We've been saying that security tokens are the next big thing. I believe that we are getting closer to the time when security tokens will become really the next big thing. Can you briefly explain the differences? I know there's also some interplay between arts and funds. Possibly recently you issued some guidelines on tokenization of funds as well. Does the MFSA have a strategy on security tokens, on what is needed to get them approved, some streamlining? We know that securities would fall under a different department within the MFSA, but obviously given the knowledge of the FinTech team, it would be extremely important for the FinTech team to be on board in this as well. So what is the vision now and the wider on tokenization of assets, on security token and so on? We know that other jurisdictions outside of the EU are doing a lot in terms of tokenization of assets, particularly state, for example.
Yeah, of course. If there's confusion in the market, I can fully understand. It's confusing even for regulator. Essentially, let's look at the 3 buckets. EMT, that's your typical electronic money, but just in a DLT asset form. So, I mean, we all use different type of EMI. Your money is there, stored electronically. Here it's just with a DLT. ART, similar, but different, in a sense that it pegs its value, it maintains a value of 1-1, but the composition of the reserve are very different. So an EMT, mostly cash or investment in liquid low-risk asset, think government treasuries, that type of things. ART can be a bit more creative. This is a basket of assets, but its function is to remain stable. So the difference between an EMT and ART is just the composition of the reserve. That is it. Different actor comes into play who can issue it and whatever, but fundamentally they serve the same purpose. DLT assets remaining stable, just their composition, what's under the hood is different. Security token is a whole different game. Here there's not a purpose of remaining stable. Here it's using the DLT technology to take an asset, a financial instrument that is generally not electronic issued, and put it on the DLT. Why? Because we know the inefficiencies of the traditional markets. Obviously, blockchain brings a lot of benefits, but why we're not seeing a lot of them in Europe right now is because you have the infrastructure. We need to change the pipeline. We need to change the infrastructure because right now the traditional market depends on traditional markets infrastructure. So you have your custodian, your depository, your stock exchange, etc., etc. Now this needs to be, let's say, adapted to DLT. There is part of the digital finance package, the DLT pilot. There was a slow uptake, but we're finally seeing it coming. Why? Because first of all, the Commission has decided to keep it forever. So it's not just a package for 2 or 3 years, it's forever, meaning that a market operator, if they invest to get there, know that they have a couple years to make it happen. So it will happen. It happened faster in other jurisdictions because they didn't have this legacy infrastructure. This is really what it is. But it will happen. We are definitely, as MFSA, looking at tokenization of financial instrument. I think that we made our position clear with this paper. I can assure you that the knowledge is shared. FinTech act as a center of knowledge in a way. So any other sector, when there is something innovative, we are being consulted, and we're seeing a high level of cooperation. So I think right now what we need is really projects that are interested to explore this tokenization. Have courtesy meeting. Many of you know that MFSA has an open door policy. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't take very limited amount of time to seek and request a meeting with us. We generally can meet in a very reasonable amount of time, and we take it from there. We understand what the entrepreneur wants to do. We can highlight, some of the limitation and the showstopper from the law, but we can work together. This has always been the approach. For innovation, there is a need for collaboration because on both sides we need to learn a lot from each other.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Camille. My last question is, what are your predictions for market growth in FinTech and the FinTech space for the next 3 years? And you already started mentioning some. So you're looking at B2B and you're looking at the DLT pilot regime. What else?
Well, there's plenty of things going on for sure. I think the stablecoin market will mature 100%. Right now I'm seeing too many of them. I don't think we can have 60 euro stablecoin. I think that's unrealistic. So I think at some point there will be consolidation, or we will see some actor just acting as bridge between stablecoin. And I think that stablecoin, especially in Europe, will very nicely lead to a bit more creative treasury management, especially from a corporate perspective. We've seen it happening in the US, where a lot of large industry with a lot of cash, if they were to switch to some digital assets, could get more bang for their buck. And I think that in the situation that Europe is, where the growth is what it is, I think we need to look at that. So I think that, corporate treasury management has definitely a lot of room to grow in Europe. B2B is certain. I think that's any industry maturing.
But can you develop this part on B2B? You said, okay, we have some institution, and in Malta I have one of the largest global institutional operators in the world. But what are you looking at as B2B? Maybe we can give more ideas of what we're looking at.
I think what's going to happen is that as the sector matures, people are going to stop trying to do everything. So if I look at the application that I was receiving in 2018-19, they were ticking all the boxes. I want to do every services under the sun. 1 year after that, maybe one of the service was being used. So I think that we're going to see a bit of maturity there, where people are going to find their niche and say, I'm good at that, and the market is big enough that I can only focus on that. Right now, I don't think the market is big enough to just dedicate and say, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing on-ramp and off-ramp solely. I'm doing institutional custody solely. Right now, we're not having that. We're seeing everyone trying to be everywhere. So I think we're going to have market leaders emerging, or 100%, and we're going to see more cooperation between players. Right now, this is a highly competitive, cutthroat industry, because everyone is trying to get a license first, get some share of the market, etc. The moment things are a bit more established and the market is big enough, the pie is big enough for everyone, we're going to see that. And I think this is with specialization that we're going to see more technicality, because you cannot be everywhere. You cannot be a specialist of every services.
Camille, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Hopefully we'll do it again in March now, in the next AIBC conference. Thank you, Camille.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, AIBC.